Hello, this is the Count of Arcadia, and
Quinn.
welcome to Nerdmusement.
Yes.
Place.
I guess I'll say it then, because if it's amusing to nerds, it's Nerdmusement.
Okie doke.
Haha.
So what's the topic lineup this week?
All right, we're going to talk about Anime Frontier, which is held this weekend in Fort Worth. Then we're going to talk about Wata, when the gaming authority Wata finally releasing its first population list of all the NES cartridges it's been grading. Then you're going to be talking about the situation with the Star Wars Hotel, and then we'll be sharing our random thought.
Okie doke. Do you have the random thought this week?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It's an issue that's disturbed me greatly, which I wish to bring to the fore so we can all discuss it.
Okie doke. So let's get started with the Anime Frontier in Fort Worth.
Yes.
Mind you, I said Fort Worth, not Dallas. There's a good reason.
Yes, a very good reason. They couldn't even hold it in Dallas at this point because the Dallas County still has the 5,000 person attendance limit, which would make a convention of this size just completely undoable, to say the least. Main thing to also bear in mind about Anime Frontier is that it is the official industry convention for, originally it was Crunchyroll, but now that Crunchyroll has been purchased by Sony, it's been blended with Funimation. So this is the Funimation / Crunchyroll anime giant having their own convention, which is why they chose the Fort Worth Convention Center, because that's a center built for up to 50,000 people. So this is meant to be, they're intending for this to be a defining event, even to eventually rival Anime Expo.
That would explain the guest list.
Oh yeah, so of course drawing heavily, on the Funimation voice actors, and to a lesser extent Aniplex.
And Crunchyroll.
Oh yes. Though Crunchyroll doesn't do that much in the way of voice actors, because most of their stuff is,
well, they import people from other companies.
And they did, and actually Crunchyroll did use their connections to bring over more Japanese industry guests, which was kind of cool. And also another thing that was actually pretty cool at the convention was they actually had one of the Final Fantasy concert events come in and do a performance there. So that was pretty cool. And so I guess the main thing always comes up now, though, with every convention we look at, this probably was the best attended convention in DFW for the year. In fact, probably since the beginning of the pandemic.
So what did your informants tell you?
That it was a busy floor, definitely busier than any place else they've been since the pandemic began. However, it did not come anywhere near the 30 to 50,000 that was obviously the original intent. And I think they knew that when they proceeded with it. I think they knew that the pandemic was still going to cause issues. But they managed to fill, as you can see, they filled their exhibitor floor, which is pretty hard to do because that's a massive exhibiting area in there. And again, enough people came through for at least for the merch, for the retailers to find it worthwhile. Hearing from them, they're all pretty happy with it and plan to come back. And it's probably enough to at least justify having it, and it's probably on track for its next year, once hopefully all the pandemic issues have cleared, to become that 40 to 50,000 person event, especially since it has that corporate backing, unlike A-Kon, which came into the Fort Worth Convention Center in its last years and actually did start hitting that 30,000 plus number, but then it just fell apart from internal problems, just because frankly, once you get that big, you really need to run your show carefully, because things get real expensive real quick, and without any other financial backing, you can find yourself in a hole very fast.
So was there anything that was the bad? Sounds good so far, other than they didn't hit the 50,000 mark.
Two things that really kind of came up. They did have a couple of panels, if you go to the panels list there, where they were talking about diversity in the anime industry. And also, it should be noted that some of the panels where they want to talk about like LGBT representation and how it's the people of color, those, I don't think are actually necessarily really a problem at all, because if people want to talk about their individual groups' experience in the industry, that can be a good thing. I can actually get behind that to an extent.
Well, it's been there since the beginning.
Yeah, but the problem is specifically on the one we talked about representation in the industry in general, and particularly on the Japanese sides where things got a little weird. Some of the people attending were just like, well, you understand the reason we have this unique Japanese anime industry is because Japan's not like us. It's a homogenous society. And that homogeneity allows for creativity in unique ways because people can experiment more mentally and still fall back on a society that's very clear on how to integrate with it, and that is institutions that can be easily accessed by people who are part of it. So in a way, those strictures, that structure can bring freedom, and especially since with the Japanese, they have access as a first world nation to all this knowledge and entertainment from the rest of the world that they can read or watch and be inspired by, but at the same time are insulated enough within their own unique society that they're able to keep out a lot of the cultural problems which have frankly driven Hollywood over the edge, particularly at Disney,
Yes.
like you'll be talking about later. Um, so when they're talking about like, oh, how we really want to try to get Japan to think more multiculturally and to be more like the West in the production process, like, no,
No.
that's bad.
Yes.
It's anime is great because Japan's not like us. That's what makes them
That's the
good.
point.
Plus, that's a
You, if
very
you want
insulting thing to
diversity in
say.
animation, you allow different countries to tell their stories. You don't just bring them over here or have someone who claims to be an expert of country X tell you that they really like potatoes. So you make a film about potatoes and the movie fails just because the only thing he knows is they eat potatoes a lot.
Right. Plus, it's just so insulting of Japanese culture, saying like, "Yeah, we need your society to change to be more like us." I mean, it's like, okay, or maybe if we really insist that our animation needs to have those kinds of cultural elements, then maybe we should make that animation with the Japanese make the animation they want to make. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
Let
and
people tell the stories they want to tell, and then you be the
yes,
judge in the market.
exactly. And item two, that was a little bit of a concern. And I want to emphasize this. If you look at some of the stuff they put up in their panel rooms, some of them are really awesome. Like that Final Fantasy concert, the Zombieland Saga concert that was awesome, and a lot of other really great panels and showing a lot of major recent anime releases. So they really put their panel rooms to use.
Also, they
But
had a couple of older shows,
oh yeah, yeah,
like The Irresponsible Captain Tyler
cool, because that's been recently re-released
by
by Bright Stuff. So that was a big high profile release. That's why that was there. But the thing is, if you compare that to the more organic anime conventions, like when Akon was there, they used the panel rooms inside the convention center, and then also they were using panel rooms in the nearby hotels.
yeah.
Because the traditional large organically developed anime conventions have so many things going on in them beyond just the dealer's room and the cosplay contest. It makes them different from, let's say, the conventions, the comic cons, where it's just dealer's room, autograph room, cosplay
Well,
room. Now they'll have the cosplay contest will be the three things, and then maybe a couple of very carefully selected oh yeah, the other element right here, but carefully selected panels. And that's what we're kind of seeing here is they didn't bother with any additional rooms at the nearby hotels for events. While they used the panel rooms inside the convention center fully for Friday and Saturday, on Sunday they were abandoned. They barely bothered. And that was it. So they're definitely moving more towards a comic convention model than an organic anime convention model. And yeah, you probably noticed that yes, all the autographs you got to pay without fail, which unfortunately is a model all across the industry at this point. Here in Texas, I think Anime Fest is the only convention that has put its foot down and said that anybody who's here signing autographs has to do it for free.
yeah, I had a coworker a couple weeks ago tell me about how they ran into John Yost, the former Black Ranger, who's an anime voice actor now.
Oh, yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he played Lelouch, and it's
Yeah,
killing me that I can't remember his name. Great actor, actually. Very
yeah,
friendly.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Very good voice actor. Ah, darn it. What is his name?
Yeah, I know. I can't think of it, but he she didn't know about the fact that guests or people who are signing autographs probably will charge money.
Yeah,
One of the
because
things about anime conventions for years is you stand in line, guess what, you get the autograph for free.
yeah, now it's this is how they make money. And that's the thing with Vic, Vic Mignogna. I can always get his last name.
Mignogna.
Mignogna. Yeah, unfortunately, he kind of he kind of pioneered this of selling his autograph as a major income stream, and now it's an industry standard. And yes, particularly with Anime Frontier, that's what they're. That's one reason why they're starting up this convention, because also you'll look at those rates. Um, yeah, this is Funimation slash Crunchyroll getting as much of their stable into one place and just doing a massive autograph machine.
Oh, you
Which
got Goku.
I noticed they're selling voicemails there too. But
Yeah, no, the one that's weird to me is prices will be available at guest table.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Sean
can
Schultz.
expect the
Yeah,
prices at Schimmel's table.
yes. But see, that's concerning me though. Is just this overall fact that it is structuring itself more on the Comic Con model,
Yeah.
which is also where this came from. Vic really just pioneered bringing this from the Comic Con model, where it long been the norm for the actors there to charge for their autographs, into
Well,
the anime convention circuit. And now the Anime Frontier is taking the entire Comic Con model, and it's not just them, mind you. Acon has already announced their next venue is going to be the Irving Convention Center.
hmm,
Well, and we've been there, and you know what that place is like. It's got a huge
it's
exhibitors room. It's got on the second floor. It's got a pretty big area for autographs. Another largest area you can use for the cosplay contest. And third floor is just a couple little rooms you can do a couple panels in, and that's it.
yeah.
And
They're
there's
telling the
no,
panels are kind of disappearing is sadly the truth.
yeah, and there's nothing around the Irving Center. So this is the two biggest conventions by far in DFW,
Well, there
and they're
is
both,
one thing.
well, and they're both anime comic conventions. Is my point, that they're structuring themselves as anime comic conventions.
I
and
know.
then and then stepping down from them, you have Anime Fest, which is maybe a third of their size, and it's the biggest last one who's trying to be an actual anime convention, which is
Well, traditional anime convention and
exactly.
also more family friendly.
Yes, yes. But that being said, so overall, Anime Frontier, everything I'm saying is overall was a good experience. It's a great dealer's room. The panels that they did have were pretty impressive. They did have some pretty crazy events going on there, give it the concerts and everything. So I plan to try to drop in there next year,
Well,
depending when it actually
hopefully
is.
after the fun bug disappears.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. That's one of the things that really capped their attendance, even though they didn't have an official cap like Dallas does with the 5,000 attendance limit. Uh, in Fort Worth, they had to check everybody's vaccination cards. Everybody had to wear masks at all times, or you had a recent test, and that's probably going to be an issue in Dallas here too. They try to hold Anime Fest for a few
Yeah,
weeks.
that
So
is what kept me from going. I just didn't want to deal with it.
that and parking is one thing that kept me personally too from the final little straw, where it's like, do I really want to put up with the cost of the ticket, which wasn't bad. I mean,
Well, there
those
is
conventions going
areas of
towards,
Fort Worth where you can just park.
yeah, but they're a bit of a walk. And downtown Fort Worth is nice now. They've done so much for that area for the last couple of decades that walking through Fort Worth isn't that much of a concern anymore. But it's, I don't know, just a lot of effort, a whole lot of time. And unfortunately, I was kind of busy this weekend on other things. So trying to work it in just really wasn't wasn't looking too good. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so generally good, generally high ranking, probably worth going to. Just be something to be keeping an eye on.
Okay. So maybe next year Nerdmusement will be there.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping.
Okay. Let's go on to the next topic.
Okay, so Wata, who's one of the most high profile game cartridge grading groups out there, finally put out a population list, basically a list of all the games they've graded and sealed, to actually establish what the real size of the market is. And like, for example, do a quick search at the top there for Super Mario. That'll get you your biggest results right there. And the thing is, people have been asking for this for quite some time because the prices of some of these cartridges, especially the 9 pluses, have been going through the roof. Groups have been actually forming investment funds to pay like 20, 30, $40,000 for some of these cards. Thing
Mm.
is, they did that on the assumption that there would only be that there's supposedly only maybe a few dozen in existence. And so we finally get this population report that's on the screen now, and that is not the case. Even
Okay, were they honestly, I would understand for searching games, but for Super Mario Brothers, there are a ton of copies out there.
oh, it gets worse too, because what we're seeing right here, for example, so Super Mario Brothers, it said 167 copies that they have graded in a sealed case, right? But here's the thing. What this is just with Wata, and Wata is legendarily behind on their grading. They have thousands and thousands of cartridges just piled up waiting to be graded.
Well, little
So,
Samson doesn't surprise me there.
well, even then, it's going to be more than that because, like I said, Wata has a huge backlog. So these numbers are actually quite low just for Wata. And then, even if Wata finally gets caught up, Wata is not the only grading association out there. VGA is their main competitor, and VGA is frankly probably bigger. They haven't released their population report. They've been sitting on it too. Uh,
That's not
so
good.
so WADA is probably going to go ahead and so when VGA releases, that's going to be probably at least doubling or probably more than doubling the number of confirmed sealed cards. And finally, this is just ones that are confirmed to have been graded and put in a case. So all the ones that are still sitting out there on people's shelves and people's collections that are still in actually large boxes where you have like a box of 12 games that somebody's managed to find from a warehouse somewhere, all of those are still sitting there uncounted. They're still popping up on eBay and other places. So this is going to hit the market in a big way. Just because all those big, huge, again, 20, 30, $40,000 investment pricing on those, that was not justified. That was severely over exaggerated.
Yeah.
And this information getting out and the implications of that is definitely going to start hurting some of those auctions. And hopefully starting to trickle down to the lower quality examples and other games, trying to start getting the prices more rational and less fluid like they are right now.
You mean like this one?
Oh, because of this, they're claiming they only have the one.
Because it's so rare.
Well, and that one may be believable just because actually the problem with that one, because that one, if you remember, was a Blockbuster exclusive,
Mm-hmm.
which means that basically they all got shucked when they arrived at their Blockbusters. Were taken out of their packaging and just put in a rental case.
Yeah.
So for those, yeah, that's believable just because that game, almost all of them were taken out of their packaging just as a matter of distribution.
Look at that.
So that one has a legitimate excuse for being that way. But most of these titles, yeah, there's going to be a lot more of them showing up
That
as time
doesn't
goes on.
surprise me about that.
Yeah. And plus the refusal to release population numbers is really been coming to a head because VGA has been refusing for a while too, but particularly the whole thing with the alleged, we'll just say alleged because we don't want to get into anything, but the alleged improprieties between Wata and Heritage Auctions, who's been pushing a lot of these investments on these inflated prices on these games, has been fed by the lack of accurate numbers like these. And the fact that Wata kept refusing to release them strongly feeds in that this was all intentionally part of this plan to work with Heritage to blow up these numbers.
Mm.
Or the alleged plan, of course, because we don't know for sure. It's all just alleged, just highly likely. So, so yeah. So it's a good step that these numbers are out there, but at the same time, we just have to remind everybody these are not the final numbers. Wata has more cartridges. VGA hasn't released their list, and there's tons of them still out there on people's shelves and in people's collections. So don't even take these numbers as being the definitive count for how many of these high quality cartridges there are. And that's the other thing too. These are just the ones that are the extreme high quality, 6 and above in their cases and that are sealed and graded. So there's
That is
plenty of other
amazing
ones.
to me.
Well, actually, that's the thing too, especially when you see a cluster. Um, let's see. Actually, okay, I don't really see a cluster because the main thing is if you look at a lot of these games, when you see clusters of the same condition, of like 12 or 14 or something like that, that's a box. Somebody found a box with like 12 or 14 games in it that's been sitting in a warehouse or something, and just opened that box. And
Like
that's where you
this
get,
one.
there you go. Yeah. Somebody must have found a box of those.
Actually, that's a really good game. It was made by Sunsoft, who also made the original Batman tie-in movie for the NES game.
Yes. I don't know. Well, does that one also? Actually, that one's more spread out. That one has a more even distribution on the grades. Though there's also a problem, though, that and this is something that I heard too, is that what often happens when people purchase a sealed game is they'll crack it and sometimes they'll resubmit it just as it is on the hope that they'll get a more generous grader, and they don't report it because the problem is you can't tell them that you took an already graded game and that you're trying to get it regraded again on the sly, because they won't do it. They're just going to say, hey, our grade is final. It can only go down if you give it to us again and we know it's been graded. But if they crack it out of there, and send it in as a new cartridge, it'll get regraded, and sometimes it gets what they want, the higher grade. But even if it gets the same grade, Wata doesn't know, and or neither does VGA if it's being done to them. So some of these cards, some people point out, some of these cards probably don't actually exist because they're probably lower quality ones that were resubmitted, or people bought the case, cracked it, sent it in. And also in some cases, people will even try to do some repairs,
Mm.
off the books, unmentioned, to try and make it look a little bit better, maybe a little bit touching up. So yeah, that's another factor to be brought into concern
Oh,
when looking at these consideration when looking at these numbers.
that's why I don't recognize this game.
Baby boomer.
Yeah, it's one of those Color Dream cartridges. It's a British company. They released their own carts here in the US. And they were those blue ones with the shocker in them. The bypass 10AES chip.
Oh, right, right. Actually, that reminds me. Put in Tetris. Let's see how many of the Tengen Tetris carts. Here we go. Only 30 have been graded and put away. Interesting. Interesting. But again,
Tetris.
but I'm sure that number is going to go up. Again, once they start getting through their backlogs, a lot of these numbers are going to substantially increase.
And with more information, that means that you have a better idea of the markets.
And that raises the specter then, is Wata going to actually get off their butt and get their grading done and get caught up and get these updates out to everybody? And is VGA, because VGA still hasn't released their population list, are they going to keep trying to find excuses not to release it? So that's, yeah, maybe people should definitely be keeping this in mind, as this is the minimum number, but definitely not the definitive number. There's probably
Well,
it's probably
it gives at least a minimum of what's out there.
right.
Once you have a minimum, you have a floor. And we
Yes,
know there are definitely more copies out there.
right. And again, these are just the sealed ones. I mean, if you just want to get a decent quality copy of the game, you'll, for a lot of these games, there's still thousands of them just floating around.
Okay.
So hopefully this will bring some sanity back to the market now that numbers are started, real floors are being added.
Yes. Okie doke.
Okay, so this one's all you, man. What the heck is going on with the Star Wars Hotel?
Okay. Hold on one sec. Basically, in the last week, Disney released a video on YouTube. And what happened was basically they had it was a typical, they had a celebrity and someone from Imagineering, someone I've never seen before, but that doesn't mean a lot. And we'll get into that later. This is a actor from the Goldbergs.
Okay.
Or anyway, basically, this was the video Disney put out. And all we have left now are reaction videos of people who watched it. In short, I'm not going to show it because I don't want to get struck down. But basically, they had the idea of the Star Wars hotel is that you basically come in, you get it. It's basically like a cruise, kind of, but the hotel is basically you're stuck on in this hotel. The rooms are not exactly the largest rooms in the resort, and you end up with kind of Japanese moto hotels, you know, the small the tube hotels. That's your accommodations for kids. You get a little bit
Okay.
more room, but everyone's kind of sleeping in a tube. But if you want to pay even more than the $6,000, also you have to remember for 2 days, you pay more than you would if you just went and stayed at something like New Orleans Landing at Disney World. So basically, if you're a family of 4 people, let's say you have one kid under 10 and one kid who's a little older but younger than 18, you're going to pay $6,000. In addition, you get to go one time to Galaxy's Edge. One
Okay.
time. You don't get to go to the other parks. You don't get to go anywhere else. The other big issue, this is a LARPing hotel. So at the moment, you get to go on the bridge at some point. You can't exit the hotel at any time because you're supposedly in space. And at some point, you get one trip on a bus that's made out to look like it's a ship. And you dock at Galaxy's Edge and you can't leave the Galaxy's Edge at Disney's MGM. So,
Okay.
and mind you, you're stuck being a New Republic citizen, I guess. So you can't, if you're thinking you're going to be like you know, a stormtrooper, you know, or something, and you're there, nope, you're stuck. So you're stuck being LARPing good. So all in all, you're kind of stuck in a small room, and your only entertainment is the equivalent of the Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah, that does not look very
Let me see if I
well.
can cut the this is video courtesy of Star Wars Theory, who some of you may or may not be aware of, was kind of made fun of by employees at LucasArts. This is not what anybody expected. This is not the, and his reaction, he just sits there for 5 minutes after he sees the video and he's just like that.
Yeah, it looks like they do really do that much Imagineering at all. They just or it doesn't look very Star Warsy. I mean, how are we supposed to immerse ourselves at that?
Actually, it looks like a great Star Trek ship. That's the
Yeah.
problem. It somebody compared it, I think it was Clownfish TV, said that it was basically everything but Star Wars.
Yeah, plus those
Even
price
the
points.
font here, it looks more like Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's the thing. I thought meant that looked like, especially where it says Galactic. That looked kind
Yeah,
of
it
thought it
looks
said
like
Galactica.
Galactic. You could add Galactica, which
Yeah,
is owned by
same. Yeah.
Universal. Honestly, that's the thing that really is kind of weird. One of the things that people always praise at the various Universal parks with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is that anyone who, you know, you can be House Slytherin. You don't have random people who come up to you and start beating you up. You're wearing
Uh,
green, suddenly
Yeah, but that's I mean the Empire is evil. I mean it's clearly posited in Star Wars that the Empire is a negative group. You don't want to be the Empire. That's kind of a
Except
given.
for, as we both know, the 501st Legion, which is one of the larger um, fan groups of Star Wars people. Good people, a lot of them, but they are
Yes,
being imperial
but they're not doing imperial things. They're not like, oh, I don't know, gathering up thousands of alien refugees and slaughtering them, because that's the kind of thing the
for the
Empire
glory of the
does.
empire.
Yeah, they don't, they
And
don't, they don't, fake doing that sort of thing. It's really just showing off costuming and such. It's
yeah,
for
and
LARPing, it would make sense. So for that much, at least, actually, it makes sense. You can't LARP as Empire and not get to dark territory.
mm, there are some things you can do.
Well, they could have been neutral. I mean, that's the thing. This could have been like a cantina kind of experience, a little bit of.
Actually, Star Wars theory suggested on what you could have done a Jedi temple on one side and a Sith temple. You theme it to where the Jedi temple is on Coruscant or another Jedi big world, and then you could have had Korriban for the Sith.
Hmm.
But to me, that isn't what people would want to see if they were at a Star Wars hotel. The truth is, Disney overthought this. To me, the best
Hmm.
idea would have been you have three buildings. You have one building which represents the Rebel, New Republic group. You have another building that represents, the scoundrels and whatnot. And then you have the third building, which is kind of the Imperial. And each one has different uniforms for the employees. And at the Imperial one, you have Palpatine's Steakhouse, where the Emperor will come down, cackle at you, and ask you how the steak turned out. And if you don't like how your steak turned out, he does cackling, and then through the magic of some effects, he can do lightning and said, "How do you like it?"
Well, I think the main thing is that for the hotel versus the actual experience out in the park,
Yeah,
it needs to be kind of a light LARP where you want to be
yeah.
able to feel like okay that you're on a some sort of public star cruiser or something like that,
No, just
or
make it.
in the cantina, but not necessarily get pulled into an ongoing LARP all the time. You just want to be able
Yeah,
to soak in the experience. I mean, when they first started showing some concept, some concept art for this,
they had
uh,
droids all over the place. They had, stuff where droids were supposed to, come up and greet you. They actually have the technology for that.
yeah, but talking to my friend, friend and my siblings at the time, we were talking about wanting to go out there, and we would just be, doing a little bit of cosplay as some some smugglers or something, and just being able to spend time in in
You're
a
not
cantina
allowed to
like bar.
cosplay our LARP inside Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's I don't know. I think they kind of missed their focus there. The idea of the hotel is just supposed to be, I think, a light experience to kind of immerse yourself in the universe and then be able to go out into the park, which is why it's weird that this isn't being directly connected to the rest
No,
of the park for the
you
more
have to take a
specific
bus.
events.
And the
Yeah, and
saddest
no,
thing is you can't even go to the rest of Disney MGM. You're confined to Galaxy's Edge.
after you've tossed all these thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Which for $6,000, you can have a really good time at Disney World. And you can go to Galaxy's Edge. There is no advantage to going to the Hyperion, which to me also doesn't make sense because the ship looks too clean, too nice to be in that sector of the galaxy. Because Batu, if it's close to Batu and you're going to Batu, what kind of weird cruise are you taking in the outer rim? This is something that would be in the core worlds. You know,
Right, right.
the
Plus,
ship's too,
plus the whole thing about Star Wars versus Star Trek is that ships in Star Wars are very they look very used and lived in.
yeah,
I mean, because they gives you that's how you can immerse yourself in Star Wars more because it feels like a more real universe.
yeah.
So
So yeah,
that's
if
yeah,
this
I don't
was
know.
out near Batu, this ship would, have cords falling from places. There might be some horrible monster that lives next to you and keeps you up all night, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think they really thought this through properly, and
No,
that is one heck of a huge price tag to be attaching to it as well. So
yeah. Also,
yeah.
you need the annoying Wookiee neighbors who are doing Wookiee sounds all night.
Oh, I think that they've tormented everybody enough with this, with just the bad conceptualization here.
Yeah,
But
and the problem
yeah,
is they probably have spent tons and tons of unknown amounts of money. And it's just it just shows that once upon a time, Disney Imagineering was at the top of the game. And now we're seeing just a gradual just disintegration of the quality of Disney and Imagineering. And you're seeing them going over the Universal or going out on their own or just retiring.
yeah, a lot of their Imagineer. It seems like a lot of their Imagineers. What it used to be, Imagineer used to be kind of a combination of artist and engineer. Now more and more of them are just like stylists. You know, basically if they weren't here, just saying like, "Oh, we'll design this room with maybe this or that," or maybe put some
Yeah.
discolored curtains there, make it look like to suggest this. And anyway, if they weren't doing that, they'd be at any other hotel, maybe out in the Middle East, trying to get something look expensive for some sheik or
I'm
something.
glad you mentioned
It's
the
just
hotel issue. That's another big issue at Disney World specifically. In the past, since the opening of Animal Kingdom, there really has not been a new park built on the Disney World property, whereas there have been several new hotels built by Disney, but no new um, park. This, do you know what that creates?
a lot of long lines for the actual
Exactly.
attractions. Yeah.
Whereas once upon a time, you could get buy attractions through the Fast Pass. Now you're confined now to the new Genie system, which Genie system is basically the equivalent of a return almost to the e-ticket system or the ticket book system.
See, that's the thing that really just gets to me is when you these days to go have a trip to Disney World. I mean, it's gotten so ridiculously expensive, and then you get situations like this, like okay, you're going to put out $6,000 to $10,000 and still stand in line for hours and hours and hours because they frankly overbooked you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such an abuse. I don't know what Disney is thinking. Um,
Well, they figure, okay, one of the ideas is that by you having to pay and be stuck in line, you're going to stay longer on property. Once you stay on property longer, that means you're not giving your money to, say, Bible World or Universal or Legoland or SeaWorld or going over to Tampa and going to Busch Gardens. That's
yeah,
the idea.
but the thing is, if I'm spending that much time on property in line, I'm not putting much money into anything. Because if I'm in line, I'm not spending money. Is what it really kind
Yeah.
of boils down to.
The
Less
original idea,
attractions.
and in fact, the Fast Pass, which there's a recent very good episode of Defunctland that goes into the whole history of the Fast Pass and its metamorphosis into the monster it is today. And one of the things they clearly tell is that with the Fast Pass introduction, one of the reasons it became one of the big deals at Disney was that people would then go and spend some time in the stores or restaurants.
Right.
One of the things that annoys me all and keeps me away from the Disney property right now, and I've been near Disney 2 times in the past year, is the fact that I just don't want to have to deal with the long lines at the restaurants as well. You can't even get in to be our guest in the new Fantasyland at Disney World. You have to book that about 2 months in advance.
Yeah, I don't know where Disney is going. I mean, I know they've created this unique niche for themselves as being this unique high dollar experience, but there's
And
a certain amount of cachet attached to that, but there's not everything I'm hearing is that they just do not deliver like they used to, but the price tag just keeps going up and up. And I know
but if
Universal
you
is
go
already in
over to
position.
Universal, you can get on most rides, you know how long the ride rate is going to be if you don't have a fast pass. You know where stuff is available at that moment, and you don't have to have been someone who stayed at one of the Disney or Universal properties nearby. And they're building a third park in the area. Well, a third
Right.
theme park as opposed to the water park they bought. So Universal is looking a whole lot better, especially with the eventual addition of the third park with Super Nintendo World.
Universal in general just seems to be much more focused on making parks that actually work.
And they've been adding rides.
And they've been doing quality Imagineering. I mean, that's the big thing I've been hearing is a lot of former Disney Imagineers have been heading over to Universal.
Yeah, a lot of them were the ones who redesigned Islands of Adventure into what it became, and eventually turned a section of Islands of Adventure into the Wizarding World. A lot of the tech and ideas that went into the Wizarding World were actually meant to be at Animal Kingdom's extra area that never got built. That was the fantasy part of Animal Kingdom. And one of the sadder things is when you realize it just never got built. It was an amazing idea, and it just, Disney passed on it, mostly because at the time they needed money, but they always intended to build it. And then the Bob came. And by Bob, I mean Bob Iger, not Bob Chapek. And Bob Iger wants everything tied into movies. So,
Right.
and the problem is a lot of the most famous Disney attractions were ones that had no connection to anything else. Pirates of the
Not to
Caribbean
mention
was
a
a
lot of those are
ride.
getting very old too.
Yeah, but it became certain rides became timeless. But if you tie it into a movie, say you put Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean, and people never see the original Pirates of the Caribbean movie, God, I'm not looking forward to the remake. They're going to wonder, who's that character? Even though I actually like Captain Jack. But it ties the attraction now into the property, as opposed to letting a lot of the attractions just be timeless.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Universal already is moving in to take over a lot of that market share. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cedar Fair, and maybe even to a lesser extent Six Flags, if they started looking at this and started seeing that maybe they too could probably start trying to develop up at least sections of certain parks and trying to add additional services of higher and different additional quality points to maybe get some people an alternative idea that instead of going to Disney and spending ridiculously high amounts of cash for experiences which are not going to justify the cost, there's other places they could go. You have really good experiences that are much more affordable so that you don't have to take out a loan to afford them, which is a positive experience in of itself, not having to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I hope that the Six Flags and Cedar Fair leadership are looking at all this and just going, you know what?
Well, even the local parks and places like Pittsburgh, where you have Kennywood, they can hire some Imagineers who basically thrown up their arms and said, I'm tired of what's going on in Disney. No one cares what I'm trying to say. So they scoop those people up. Other ride manufacturers probably will scoop up some of the Imagineers. You're seeing a brain drain from the Imagineering, and Disney is no longer what they were even 20 years ago. And it's not being corrected. That's the scary thing.
Yeah, I think right now they're so desperate for cash that
well, there's desperation for cash and maintaining their market share because they've grown too large. But the other problem with Disney is that we talked about earlier, the diversity in question. they're just hiring people who don't really have the talent, but they have the check
Right.
marks. One of the things that amazed me was about 7 months ago, there was a Disney Imagineer who went on Twitter and complained about people complaining about the fireworks show she made for Epcot. Okay, they actually have a very valid complaint in the fact that they were complaining about the fact that the floats just sit out there in the lake inside of Epcot. And so you have an obstructed view of all the pavilion from Future World, and from the pavilions where all the different countries are, you have an obstructed view over to Future World. Mind you, at the right now, it's probably for the better because Future World's all torn up and slowly
Okay.
being put back together.
So basically, this fireworks show can't be properly seen from a lot of areas it's supposed to be seen from, is their complaint.
Well, no, the floats obscure the view during the day. They just
Okay.
leave the floats out there in the lake. This is one of those things that Disney back in the 80s and 90s and 2000s and before the current changes, they would just have the floats brought in later during the day. So at night they could use them. And then they would get them out during the wee hours of the morning.
And these are floats for launching the fireworks.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically they should be getting them out of the way when they're not being needed, so that way people have the proper view they're supposed to have the rest of the park, but they're just leaving them out there.
Exactly. One of the key things that you need to do as an Imagineer is, what's this going to look like during the day? Are people going to complain about it? Or is it going to destroy their immersion into the Disney park? Is it going to kill the magic? And they're
Right.
just killing the magic every time they do a decision. One of the things that annoys me is this idea that, oh, we've got to put up a wall for Instagram.
Well,
okay.
So what is what was she telling the people who were complaining about this?
She was yelling at them. She said they don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. But people came back with pictures and showed how it obscured things, destroyed the magic. She just said it doesn't matter because she made the show and that's what's important. I'm like, if the show is not, and one of the things Walt Disney always taught is, if the show or the moment in the movie is slowing down everything and taking people out of the story or making them uncomfortable at the park, you get rid of it because it's not helping the situation. It's
well,
just
and plus, and you don't fight your customers either. So at that point,
yeah.
she should just said, like, you know what, I'm just going to CC in at Disney parks or whatever, and have
She
them take
should
a
have
look at that.
never engaged people like that.
Yeah. Plus, truth be told, if she just designed the fireworks show,
She
whether or not
designed the floats more than anything.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not even her fault then. If she just designed the show and the floats, the fact that they're not taking the time to move those floats out in the proper schedule, that's probably not even her fault.
She was in charge. She was supposed to schedule the moving in of the floats and the exiting
Maybe,
of the floats.
but yeah, it's just the fact that she's made it the problem hers now because she got engaged with these people when she should have just said, you know what, that might be worth looking at. We'll see, put the reference in for the for Disney parks or whatever, or we'll pass along and see what we can do. Let it go.
When you're dealing with customers online, even on Twitter, you go and you say, okay, you CC them, you thank them for their thing, you don't engage them as anger.
Yeah, especially when if they're taking pictures from the park, that means they just paid several $1,000s to get into your park.
Yeah, especially with the way Epcot's currently, the condition it's in.
Yeah,
it's not going to really be ready for prime time till next year. So remember, if you're planning a Disney trip, do not go to Epcot until 2022, after hopefully all the pavilions in Future World have been updated.
Yeah, truth be told, if I have a couple $1,000 like that put aside for a trip, I'm not taking it to Disney.
Yeah.
I can get
Go
so much more
go
than
over
that
to
some other places.
Universal, ride the Velocicoaster, go
Or,
see
or
stuff
tour
that,
Europe,
yeah,
tour Japan. Gosh, you could fill out like a dozen items on a bucket list with that kind of money. That would give you way better experiences for life. I mean, geez, it's just
well, that's just it. I can't recommend going to Disney World at the moment,
yeah, I
or
have to agree.
Disneyland even,
Yeah.
because it's not what it used to be. You just
Mhm.
get expensive food, you stand in lines that make no sense for It's a Small World, which usually was a walk on, and suddenly it's full.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely just try to discourage anybody from wasting money at Disney parks right now. They
Just
need
go
to
over
get
to
it.
Universal, go to SeaWorld, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Probably Lego World, Legoland, kind of. No, it's a little
But
expensive
the
for what it
problem
is.
is, though, some people, if they have that kind of money to throw around, it comes down to cachet. And saying you
Yeah.
went to Disney has some cachet, even if the experience sucked.
Yeah. They just go on Twitter or Instagram and talk about how great their experience was because they could spend $8,000 and it didn't make a dent in their bank account.
Right, right. Yeah.
But ultimately, I think when we go back to the Star Wars Hotel, the ultimate problem is it could have been done a lot better for a lot cheaper and people would be happier. Just have, choose which building you want to be in. Do you want to be in the light side or the dark side, or just the scoundrels? Scoundrels would be the cheaper option.
Yeah.
And you could have done it cheaply and you could have had Palpatine. The problem is they overthought everything. They wanted
And
to kill the wizarding world of
and,
Harry
and
Potter.
and frankly, I don't think they're in touch with their fan base, and I don't think they
No,
have
they
been for
aren't.
quite some time. They really don't know what the fan base would really love to have with experiences that they would enjoy. I think they are just kind of pulling stuff out of their butt.
And really wanting you to stay on property.
Yeah, yeah.
Recommendation, I will always say, unless you really want the experience of staying on property, just go stay at the Holiday Inn across the street from Universal. That's where I stay.
Yes, yes. So okay, so that's a definitely some bad news there about Star Wars Hotel and a recommendation of a no go. So
Okay.
okay.
So what's the random thought?
Okay, something that's bothering me. So during the Christmas shopping these last couple weeks here, just amongst the driving around, stop for lunch at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay.
Because they started really been heavily advertising their entry in the chicken sandwich war. For this is of course for the we'll call the fundamentalist chicken sandwich. The idea that it's your bun, your piece of chicken, a very quality piece of chicken, then maybe a little bit of sauce and some pickles. Basically, what Chick-fil-A built their whole
Empire.
business on. What then Popeyes, then got into it big time with their chicken sandwich, and now everybody's trying to get in on that. McDonald's even now has a quality fundamental chicken sandwich, which is actually decent. I mean, it's not great, but it's cheaper than everybody else's, and it's actually pretty decent. Way to go, McDonald's. So KFC's coming into it, looks pretty good. It's KFC. They do chicken. That's their thing. It should be great, right? So I go ahead and order the meal for it. Their fries are decent. Comes with the Baja Blast Mountain Dew. All right, good to go. The chicken sandwich, it's good, but it's just for they use their chicken tender meat, not the original, not meat that they normally use for like their actual like original pieces for the crispy or the original even, and they didn't use any of the spices for that either. Because what's the point of getting a chicken sandwich at KFC if it doesn't have those KFC spices? No, it's
You mean
just
the crispy style?
either the crispy or even if they could try to do the original, because the original skin, that oh man, that's just what makes KFC unique and good to this day with the
Oh,
original
I know.
spices. But they didn't. It's just they chose a piece of meat that's just set up like their chicken tenders. They added onto the menu as an afterthought, the last couple of years. and put a mild sauce on there and then some pickles. So it's not bad, but it's closer to the McDonald's version than to the Chick-fil-A or to the Popeyes take on the chicken sandwich. And I'm so kind of flabbergasted by that. I mean, come on, chicken is their thing. Your Kentucky Fried Chicken, and when it comes into this great chicken battle that is consuming the industry, this is what they put in there. This is what they do. I don't get that. I just cannot.
Well, it's obvious Yum Brands is not sending their best over to the KFC side of the company. Their solution for most KFC issues is to make a weird commercial and call it a day.
Yeah, I'm just flabbergasted by that. So just a little warning to y'all out there. If you're maybe thinking of trying that KFC sandwich, it wasn't bad. You're not going to be throwing it out the window, but just set your expectations low, people. It's not going to be blowing your mind, not even slightly.
Okay.
Just to saying the Colonel would not have approved. He would not have approved.
Would he possess one of the idols in Japan, take it and get on a plane and fly to Yum Brands headquarters and start whacking people?
He should do that, but I don't think he will.
Might make an interesting commercial.
Yeah, so if they want to come back from this, that's how they could do it. They could put first, make one that actually uses the original recipe flavoring, and that would make the sandwich unique, delicious, worth getting. And then to introduce it, you have that commercial. Just say, hey, it's kind of like when Domino's admitted their pizza had started to suck in a big way, and they just admitted it and made a commercial saying, hey, we got a new pizza. Sorry about the other ones. Same thing here. Have the Colonel go in there and just have him beating up some executives. People will love seeing that. And then introduce the new chicken sandwich and be like, okay, there we go. That's what we wanted. That's what we needed from you, KFC. Was this
Since
kind
apparently their brand now is crazy commercials.
If that's what it comes down to. if that's all you got, go with that. And then maybe throw in a decently unique chicken sandwich.
Though I will argue that the Pizza Hut commercials are very good and not that weird. Except for that one, and we all know what it is.
Yes. But that's what I thought. Yeah, just putting it out there. Just saying.
Okay. So we'll see you next time. I'm the Count of Arcadia.
And this is Quinn.
And this has been Nerdmusement.
Because if it's amusing to nerds, it's